Whey protein. Whey is the gold standard, and you already knew that. It comes from milk. It's a complete protein with all 9 essential amino acids, and it has the highest leucine content of any protein source. Leucine is the amino acid that flips the switch on muscle protein synthesis. So far, so obvious. But whey isn't just whey. There are 3 subtypes, and the difference between them is actually worth understanding. Whey concentrate is your entry-level option. It's around 70 to 80% protein by weight, with some lactose, fat, and carbs still in there. Tastes the best of the 3 because those extra milk solids give it a creamier flavor. Mixes fine, works great in smoothies, pancakes, oatmeal, basically anything you want to throw it in. Budget friendly, and honestly, for most people, this is all you need. The catch, if you're lactose sensitive, concentrate might bloat you. It's not a huge amount of lactose, but it's enough to cause problems if your gut doesn't handle dairy well. Whey isolate is concentrate that's been filtered further. You're looking at 90% plus protein per scoop with almost 0 lactose, less fat, and fewer carbs. If you're cutting and every macro matters, or if dairy gives you issues, isolate solves those problems. It costs about 20 to 30% more than concentrate. Is the price jump worth it? If you're lactose intolerant or deep into a cut, yes. If you digest dairy fine and you're just trying to hit your protein target, probably not. Concentrate gets the job done for less money. Hydrolyzed whey is isolate that's been pre-digested, basically broken down into smaller peptides so your body absorbs it faster. It's the most expensive whey option by a mile. And honestly, for the average lifter, it's overkill. The absorption speed difference between hydrolyzed and isolate is measured in minutes, not hours. Unless you're a competitive athlete who needs to optimize recovery between same-day sessions, you're paying a premium for a benefit you'll never notice. The taste is also worse. Hydrolyzed tends to be bitter because of those broken down peptides, so you're paying more for protein that tastes worse and absorbs marginally faster. Hard to justify. Concentrate for most people. Isolate if dairy bothers you or you're cutting hard. Skip hydrolyzed unless you're competing at a high level. But whey isn't the only milk protein worth knowing about. Casein. Casein is the other milk protein. If whey is the fast car, casein is the diesel truck. It forms a gel in your stomach and digests slowly over 6 to 8 hours, giving you a steady drip of amino acids instead of one big spike. This is why people drink casein before bed. The idea is that slow-release protein overnight supports recovery while you sleep. And the research on this is decent, not earth-shattering, but decent. There are 2 subtypes. Micellar casein is the natural, slower digesting form. Calcium caseinate is processed to be slightly faster digesting and mixes easier, but you lose some of that slow release benefit. Micellar is the one you want if you're buying casein for the overnight recovery angle. The downside, taste and texture. Casein is thick. Some people love that because it feels like pudding. Other people hate it because it's like drinking paste. It's also not great for cooking since it gets gummy when heated. Price-wise, it sits a bit above concentrate, but below isolate. Reasonable for what it does. Solid choice as a nighttime protein or between meal snack. Not a replacement for whey, more of a complement to it. Now, both of those come from dairy. What if dairy isn't an option for you at all? We've still got 9 more to cover, and at the end, I'll break down exactly which one to buy for your goals. Egg white protein. If dairy is completely off the table for you, but you still want a complete animal protein, egg white protein is your best friend. High bioavailability, complete amino acid profile, 0 lactose, 0 dairy. It mixes reasonably well, though it's not as smooth as whey. Taste is pretty neutral, which makes it decent for baking and cooking. Protein pancakes with egg white powder actually turn out better than most whey-based ones because the texture holds up. The catch is price. Egg white protein costs more than whey for a comparable amount of protein. You're paying a premium for a product that, nutritionally, isn't really better than whey isolate. It's just different. And some people get a slight sulfury aftertaste with certain brands. Not a deal breaker, but worth noting. Buy it if you can't do dairy at all. Otherwise, whey isolate gives you the same benefits for less money. Egg white protein isn't the only dairy-free animal option on the shelf, though. This next one has a much better marketing team and a much bigger problem. Beef protein. Here's one that sounds way cooler than it actually is. Beef protein isolate sounds like steak in a blender. The reality? Most beef protein powders are made from collagen and connective tissue, not muscle meat. So you're basically getting glorified gelatin, marketed as a muscle-building supplement. Check the amino acid profile on the label. If it's heavy on glycine and proline, but low on leucine and the BCAAs, that's a collagen-based product wearing a beef costume. Some brands do use actual hydrolyzed beef, and those are legit, but they're expensive and hard harder to find. The taste ranges from tolerable to actively unpleasant depending on the brand. It's also not great in recipes. The flavor doesn't play well with sweet applications, and the texture can get weird. Mostly marketing hype. If you want beef-sourced protein, you're better off eating actual beef. If you need a dairy-free powder, egg white protein is a smarter choice. Speaking of misleading labels, collagen protein has a similar identity crisis. Collagen protein. Let's be clear about something. Collagen is not a muscle-building protein. It's missing tryptophan entirely, which means it's an incomplete protein. You cannot replace your whey with collagen and expect the same results. What collagen is good for is joint support, skin health, and gut lining. If you've got creaky knees or you're over 30 and your joints are starting to remind you they exist, adding 10-15 grams of collagen daily on top of your regular protein might actually help. It dissolves in hot liquids without changing the taste, which is why people dump it in their morning coffee. You won't taste it, you won't see it, it just disappears. Price-wise, it's mid-range. Not cheap, not outrageous. Great supplement, terrible primary protein source. Add it alongside your main protein, not instead of it. Alright, that covers the animal side. Now we're crossing into plant territory, and we need to start with the one that has the most baggage. Stick around through these, because the breakdown at the end will make all of this click. Soy protein. Time to address the elephant in the room. No, soy protein is not going to tank your testosterone. The research on this has been beaten to death, and the consensus from actual meta-analyses is that normal soy consumption does not affect male hormone levels. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, soy is the only plant protein that's a complete protein with a strong amino acid profile across the board. Like whey, it comes in concentrate and isolate forms, with isolate being more refined and higher in protein per serving. Same concept, different source. It's budget-friendly, mixes decently, and works fine in smoothies. The taste is polarizing though. Some people don't mind it. Others say it has a beany, earthy flavor that's hard to mask, even with flavoring. It works okay in baking, but can make things slightly denser than whey would. Best standalone plant protein for muscle building. If you're plant-based and not allergic to soy, this should be on your radar. Soy isn't your only plant-based option though, and this next one might surprise you with how close it gets to whey. Pea protein. Pea protein has become the default plant-based option for a reason. It's high in BCAAs, especially leucine, which puts it closer to whey than most plant proteins. It's also hypoallergenic, so if you've got a list of food sensitivities that reads like a novel, pea protein probably won't cause problems. The trade-off is that it's low in methionine, which makes it technically incomplete on its own. That's why you'll almost always see it paired with rice protein, but we'll get to that. Taste and texture are the real hurdle here. Pea protein is thick, slightly gritty, and has an earthy flavor that some people describe as drinking a garden. It's gotten better in recent years as brands have improved their flavoring, but it's still not winning any taste competitions against whey. It holds up well in baking and cooking though. Protein bars, muffins, and pancakes with pea protein tend to have a good texture. Price-wise, it's very affordable. One of the cheapest protein sources per gram. Great value plant protein, especially when paired with rice protein. Just don't expect it to taste like a milkshake. I just said pea protein is incomplete on its own. This next one is the reason that doesn't matter. Rice protein. Rice protein is the quiet support player. Nobody's buying straight rice protein as their main source because it's low in lysine, making it incomplete on its own. But here's why it matters. Rice protein is high in methionine, which is exactly what pea protein is missing. Together, they form a complete amino acid profile that actually rivals whey in studies measuring muscle protein synthesis over 8 to 12 weeks. On its own, rice protein is mild tasting, mixes smoothly, and is easy on the stomach. It's also dirt cheap. Don't buy it solo. Buy it blended with pea protein, or mix them yourself. That combo is the plant-based answer to whey. Pea and rice cover each other's gaps perfectly. But there's another plant protein that takes a completely different approach. Hemp protein. Before you ask, no, it won't get you high. Hemp protein comes from hemp seeds, and it's got a neat trick that other proteins don't. It comes loaded with omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids plus fiber. So you're getting more than just protein per scoop. The problem is that more than just protein also means less actual protein. Hemp powders typically run around 50% protein by weight, which is significantly lower than pea, soy, or whey. You need almost double the serving size to match the protein content of other options, and that means double the calories too. The taste is nutty and earthy, which some people genuinely enjoy, but the texture is gritty and it does not mix smoothly in a shaker. You'll want a blender for this one. It's decent in smoothie bowls and baking where the nutty flavor is actually a plus. Better as a whole food supplement than a dedicated protein source. If your only goal is hitting protein targets, there are more efficient options. So if individual plant proteins all have gaps, what happens when you just combine them? Blended plant protein. This is what most plant-based brands are actually selling you. A mix of pea, rice, hemp, sometimes pumpkin seed or sunflower seed protein, all blended together to cover each other's amino acid gaps. This is the smartest way to do plant-based protein. You get a complete amino acid profile without relying on any single source. The best blends are pea-rice dominant, since that combo has the most research behind it. Look at the label and make sure pea and rice are the first two ingredients, not filler sources. Taste varies wildly by brand. Some companies have nailed it, others haven't. Price sits in the mid-range, usually comparable to whey concentrate. If you're plant-based, a good blended protein is your best all-around choice. Just read the ingredient list and make sure the base is pea and rice, not hemp and filler. We've covered every mainstream option, but there's one more that I'd be lying if I said I didn't enjoy researching. Cricket protein. Yeah, this exists. The cricket protein is actually a complete protein, high in B12, iron, and it's more environmentally sustainable than basically every other source on this list. The amino acid profile is solid, and the protein content per serving is actually competitive with the mainstream options. The catch is that it's made from crickets, and for most of you, that's where the conversation ends. Fair enough, nutritionally impressive. Emotionally, a tough sell. Maybe revisit this one in 2035. Alright, so which one should you actually buy? Let's make this simple. If you digest dairy fine and want the best bang for your buck, go with whey concentrate. It's cheap, it works, and it tastes good. Done. If dairy bothers your stomach or you're deep into a cut, grab whey isolate. The extra cost is worth it for you specifically. If you want something for overnight recovery, add casein before bed, on top of your regular protein. If you're completely dairy-free but still eat animal products, egg white protein is your move. If you're plant-based, get a pea-rice blend. Look for a blended plant protein where pea and rice are the top two ingredients. That's your closest equivalent to whey. If your joints are starting to protest, add collagen to your morning coffee, but keep it as a supplement, not your main source. And if you just want the absolute cheapest option that still works, soy isolate or pea protein will get the job done without destroying your wallet. Stop overthinking this. Pick the one that matches your body, your goals, and your budget. Then actually go train.